GameRanx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and some of our thoughts on the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Friday the 13th, the game. I think they actually did it, or at least they came really damn close. I mean, I'm a big fan of the source material, and I think Friday the 13th has a promising foundation that still feels like it needs a lot of work. Now, you definitely need to know what you're getting into here, but I won't deny that I'm still having a ton of fun with it. I've been playing it non-stop on the PC for the past few days, and while there's still a lot more to be revealed about the game once everyone jumps in and after some planned updates, I've already got a big list of pros and cons. For those of you that don't know, Friday the 13th is an asymmetric multiplayer game. A team plays as a group of camp counselor survivors, while one player gets to play as one of many Jasons from the various movies. The name of the game here is to outwit and survive Jason, not necessarily kill him. I mean, he's Jason. You pretty much can't. A select few have, but it seems incredibly circumstantial. I'm not really going to spoil how to do it because it's elaborate. It's kind of cool, but I want you to figure it out on your own. It's not really what the game is about anyway. Rounds last about 15 minutes or so, average. Sometimes that feels a bit long, but often it feels just right. The object is to survive through various different ways, like waiting it out, or radioing the police and holding out for them to arrive, or finding enough parts to fix a car or boat and then get in it and escape. This is very much a game about communication, I'll say that. Playing as camp counselors is extremely difficult, but it still manages to be fun. It's still in the early stages right now, so who knows how the balancing truly is. You know, the Reddit community thinks that Jason is way overpowered, but that's kind of how it goes with asymmetrical multiplayer games. But I do think the game gives you just enough tools to temporarily thwart Jason, and it's satisfying. You can set traps for Jason, but he can do the same. You can stun him in a variety of different ways, and you can hide from him pretty much the best you can. The camp counselor characters are affected by fear and stamina. Different counselors have different stats, like some are more fearful than others, some are more athletic and can run longer, but the more afraid your character is, the easier it is for Jason to see you with his supernatural predator vision stuff. Players become more afraid when Jason cuts the power and kills the lights, or if they come across a dead body of another player. It's cool and it works. It makes for some careful, tension-filled moments where you're creeping around hoping not to get detected by Jason. It makes for some really, really slow moments and some really intense, fast-paced moments. It's a good balance. I will say, however, that you will get taken out of that tension sometimes with a variety of different things happening. When you glitch through doors, you get stuck in the environment and generally experience awkward transitions and animations and faces that just look unfinished. It's especially grating, honestly, when the same intro cutscene plays before every match and every time has the same awfully goofy looking faces. It's a little embarrassing. And it's really an unfortunate look for a game that otherwise looks pretty decent with lighting and atmosphere and stuff. You know, seeing Jason from afar walking through the woods and the moonlight hits him, it looks decent and it kind of scary until you get hit with a bit of lag and characters and vehicles get all jumpy across the map and stuff. For every time Friday the 13th looks great in motion, it's compounded by the fact that sometimes it looks weird and awkward in motion. Jason himself is practically omnipresent, and he has a ton of abilities, depending on which Jason you actually choose. It makes it really scary knowing he's always around, and the visual and musical cues definitely help sell it. You know, playing as Jason, you often pursue your victims, but thanks to a map warping ability and a forward Evil Dead camera style rush, you can essentially be anywhere at any time. Playing as Jason is so much fun. You always feel badass, and while sometimes you're limited and it'll occasionally feel awkward playing musical chairs with someone around a couch in a room, getting the jump on people feels satisfying and great, especially when you're playing with people who have mics and you can just hear their terror. I had a good time gleefully killing camp counselors as Jason. I found myself pretty good at it, but it's also because Jason does have so many abilities. But every once in a while, if you get a good group of counselors playing against you who communicate well, they can actually kind of kick your ass. And when I'm getting bombarded by flare guns and firecrackers and stepping in bear traps that camp counselors set, it's good to know that the camp counselors do have tools at their disposal to make it harder for me as Jason. The challenge of playing as counselors is really good, but it's clearly an uphill battle. Some players just won't like having so many odds stacked against them, so I'll just tell you that. But there's a bit more here. The more you level up, you can unlock different Jasons from different movies, and that's some good fan service, but you can also spend points to unlock different finishing moves, and there's quite a bit. You know, the progression system here is simple, but it's enough to keep me playing. I will say I was pumped every time I unlocked an increasingly more badass Jason, and even unlocking different campers who suck a little less. You can also spend points to roll for new perks that you can put into slots for your campers. Different little things here and there, like your mini-map not being limited, or you just never get afraid, or your fear is reduced. It doesn't always make a huge difference always, but it's nice to have the options, and you can always cash them back in and re-roll if you're not quite satisfied. The big issue I do have, though, is that it's still really just content light. All this progression is great, but there's only one game mode, and I see some people kind of getting tired tired of it after a while. Because as of right now, all you really have is one game mode and 3 maps. The 3 maps are somewhat procedurally generated, so they're not always completely the same, but that's really about all you get right now, so you have to be aware of that. It's a bit of a disappointment. In terms of matchmaking, the options are simple. You can search for a quick match or create a private match. That's about it for now. Matchmaking is clean and simple, but with just enough options, but I did have a few disconnect problems here and there on PC, as well as a lot of mic problems. The few disconnect problems I did have were weird and confusing, but otherwise I could usually click find match, get a match, get in, and play with minimal lag. And I think Friday the 13th is a promising foundation that still feels like it just needs some work. The core gameplay elements here need a bit of refining, but it's otherwise good to play. It just needs some polish around some extremely rough edges. I think it's just ever so clunky and awkward enough to feel extremely low budget, which, yeah, okay, I know it's a Kickstarter game, but that doesn't forgive some glitches and issues with instant kills and mic connection problems that will inevitably probably be patched out, but you're still committing to what is on paper an unfinished game right now. The developers say that they'll eventually add a single player mode, which is definitely admirable, and I'm looking forward to that. You know, they're also going to add constant updates to the main game and stuff like that, and I think that's great. I just think you need to 100% know that before buying into this game. You need to know that you're not buying a top tier finished game. It's not a full price game, and I think that's for a reason. But me personally, despite tons of issues, I find myself playing it all the time. It probably helps that I love the source material too, but I do think I may bow out soon and wait for more updates and fixes and balancing before I take another deep dive in. But I do think there is a lot to like here, especially for fans of the movies and for fans of asymmetrical multiplayer games. But that's how a before you buy works. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there, but now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments. If you were one of the Kickstarter backers and maybe you had your heart set on this game, how are you feeling about it so far? If you're on the outside looking in, just watching gameplay videos, it is blowing up on Twitch. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's just janky enough to have a lot of fun with, or do you think it's an unfinished mess and you want nothing to do with it? I think this is going to be a pretty divisive game for the time being, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say down in the comments. I'm going to be down there talking to you guys as much as possible, but if you got anything more for me, hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino. Send me some hate mail. But you guys know the deal. Thanks so much for coming around, watching all these before you buys. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and we really appreciate it. And subscribing if you're new is a great idea because we put out stuff like this all the time. But as always, I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
My sweet, sweet Jason. Mommy is proud of you. Now come home.